Hey preteens, it's another great Wednesday. I'm so glad that you guys are joining us for our lesson again this week. Before I jump into that, I just want to speak to you guys for a second. I know that you guys are becoming increasingly busy now with the way that things are kind of opening back up. Much of you are back to having competitions and ball games and practices and going to the lake and all of those fun things. I'm right there with you. I understand. But I just want to stress the importance that you still take just a few minutes of your time each week to watch these video lessons. I know that many times it seems like, oh, this is just another Bible story that I've heard a million times before. However, each time you read something or learn something or hear a lesson, even if it's something you've heard since you were 2 years old, there's always something new to gain from that. And when we do get to start back meeting together in class at church, we're going to be continuing this series of lessons. And each lesson we have each week builds upon another. Because guys, the Bible is not just a book of all these random little stories. It is one big, long, continuous story. It starts with the perfection of the Garden of Eden. And it actually ends back with perfection through Jesus Christ. So all of these stories are interwoven, and it is one big, long, beautiful picture. So if you miss out on 1 week, it's going to be hard for you to build week after week on that if you're missing those pieces. So that's my spiel for today, and now we can jump into the lesson. Like I said, we're in the book of Obadiah, and during this time, this actually goes back to the story of Jacob and Esau. If you remember them, Isaac and Rebekah became pregnant, and Rebekah was pregnant with twins, Jacob and Esau, and they actually wrestled in her womb. And God revealed to Rebekah that eventually these two would be at odds with one another, and that the oldest Esau would actually be under the reign of his younger brother, Jacob. Now, this caused quite a bit of resentment. Two totally different things there. Resentment on Esau's part. Nobody likes to know that eventually they are going to be under the control of a sibling, much less a younger sibling. So through the years, there was a lot of tension between these two. And eventually, just like God had told Rebekah, they split into 2 kingdoms. And Esau was over the land of Edom, and Jacob was over the land of Judah. Now, when the Israelites were wandering through the desert for 40 years, the people of Judah actually needed to go through the land of Edom to get to the promised land. And Esau blocked that. He was so jealous of his brother and so ugly to his brother that he would not allow them to travel through his land. And then fast forward to when the people of Judah were actually destroyed by the Babylonians and taken into captivity. Not only did Esau and the land of Edom sit back and allow it to happen, they actually kind of gloated about that. Esau kind of sat back and crossed his arms and with a little ha-ha, that's what you get sort of thing. He didn't step in to help his brother, and he actually took pleasure in the fact that his brother's land was being destroyed. In addition to that, once the Babylonians had taken them, Esau and his people went down into the land of Judah and looted what was left and took things that did not belong to them. But God wanted Obadiah to let Esau know something. While Judah had been destroyed by Babylon and taken into captivity, one day their land was going to be restored to them, because he knew that Jacob and the people of Judah were his people. That's the lineage that Jesus is going to come from. However, Esau, because he was a horrible man and did not do the things that God wanted him to do, their land was going to be destroyed, and it would actually be handed over to the people of Judah. So this shows how Esau would eventually be under the control of his brother Jacob. So God comes to Obadiah and says, this is what I want you to tell Esau. Obadiah, chapter 1, the only chapter in the book of Obadiah. And we are going to start reading in verse 10. And this is what God told Obadiah to speak to Esau. Because of the violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered in shame. You will be destroyed forever. On the day you stood aloof while strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were like one of them. You should not gloat over your brother in the day of his misfortune, nor rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their destruction, nor boast so much in the day of their trouble. You should not march through the gates of my people in the day of their disaster, nor gloat over them in their calamity in the day of their disaster, nor seize their wealth in the day of their disaster. You should not wait at the crossroads to cut down their fugitives, nor hand over their survivors in the day of their trouble. The day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. So God wanted Esau to know that because he had not taken care of his brother, that his land would be destroyed, and that eventually the people of Judah would take over his land. You know, like I said, last week or week before, I don't remember, jealousy is an ugly, ugly thing. And I know that a lot of times it's very easy to sit back and see people who seem to get everything. They have all the good stuff. And you feel like that's not fair. So when something bad happens to them, you kind of take a little bit of pleasure in that. Guys, that's not okay to do. When we see that our brothers and sisters are in trouble, we have to stand up for them. We have to help take care of them. Even if you feel like they don't deserve it, even if you're jealous of what they have, we have to be there for them. That's what God calls us to do. We are to love our neighbor as ourselves. It's not always easy to do, but it's something that God requires of us. So I'm going to ask you this week to please look for ways that you can show love to your neighbor. Now, who is your neighbor? Doesn't necessarily mean the person that lives next door to you. That could be it. But it could be someone that's on your ball team. It could be someone that you run into at the grocery store. It could be your cousin. It could be your aunt. It could be your mom or your dad. Whoever your neighbor is that God has put in your life, I'm going to ask that you have your eyes open and your heart open and your mind open, and that you look for ways throughout this week to love them and to stand up for them and to fight for them. Not literally fight, you know what I mean. But take care of your neighbor. That's what God has called us to do. Esau did not do that. And God ultimately, as we'll see in the coming weeks, destroy his kingdom because he did not love his neighbor. You know I love you, and I'll see you next week.